Hey, hope you're all doing well out there. My name is Dan Westfall. My company is Client Focused Financial. And the topic I'm going to talk today about is Roth IRA conversions. So this is based on a blog post that I put out in August of 2021. And I'll go through the pros and cons of and some of the common questions of Roth IRA conversions. So these are, the reason that I'm doing this video, you could read the blog post and I'm going to end up reading it to you, but I know that some people out there don't like reading. I'm one of them, so bear with me. But this is one of the things that I like doing is putting the video out there so people can actually listen to it in a different format. If reading's not your thing and you prefer watching videos, here's the video for this, this Roth IRA conversion blog. So these are some common questions that I get out there about Roth IRA conversion. So one would be, what's the benefit of a Roth IRA, or converting a pre-tax traditional IRA or 401k to a Roth IRA? Very common question. That's why it's number one. When is the right time to convert a pre-tax retirement to a Roth IRA? Another one is, should I convert it all at once or should I do it over multiple years? Is there a benefit for my kids if I do a Roth IRA conversion? So those four questions are common questions, and some of them, the follow-up one, the last one there about, about the kids, that's one that I think of because a lot of people, it would be beneficial for them. So I'll explain why here as we get through there. So the financial lingo, IRA, pre-tax, Roth money, all that stuff, you can read through that there of what those are. I don't like throwing a lot of financial lingo out there, but it being the world that we're in, and especially talking about something specific like this of a Roth IRA conversion, those are just some of the financial lingo that's in there. So look at that blog post there if you don't understand what an IRA or pre-tax or Roth or Roth and after-tax accounts, what those all mean and things. So big benefits of converting a pre-tax traditional IRA or 401k money to a Roth IRA. So the biggest benefit of having a Roth IRA in the first place is that you get tax-free growth on the money in the account. Remember, the Roth IRA is not an investment. It's simply a type of an account that protects the investment's growth and dividends from being taxed by the IRS, aka the man. The benefits of converting a pre-tax traditional IRA or 401k to a Roth IRA is that in the future, all of the growth and dividends that you make within that account from that point forward will not be taxed. They would be tax-free when you end up needing or wanting to withdraw that money. So let's look at an example. Bobby, who is 40 years old, has $50,000 in an old pre-tax 401k plan. The pre-tax means all the money in those contributions went into the plan over the years, was all pre-tax, and it was tax deductible for his income in that year. So Bobby still has not paid taxes on that money that's in that plan. Eventually, when Bobby takes that money out, all of that account will be taxed on everything, including the growth and dividends earned. Bobby talks with Dan, Client Focused Financial, that's probably the smartest thing Bobby did that day, and asked about a Roth IRA conversion and what it looked like if he paid the taxes now versus not converting the money. And Bobby being married, and they have a combined income of about $90,000, putting them in a 22% income tax bracket as of 2021. The $50,000 if converted would have the taxes taken right off the top at 22%. We're just using round numbers here for example's sake, just so you guys get a good idea. Below, and I'll show you here in the video, is the chart that shows the two scenarios over the next 20 years. So you can see those present value numbers where initially it would be the $50,000 in the pre-tax versus the $39,000 in the after-tax, or the Roth, the Roth IRA conversion after those taxes are taken out. If you're not putting any contribution in there would be zero there. The annual rate, we're just assuming, say 9%. That's pretty high. That would be a really aggressive type of portfolio. But stocks over the last 100 years have averaged 10%, including dividends being reinvested. So we're just going to use a high figure at 9. Don't break my balls over that. It's, look at stats. Stocks average 10% over time. We're using 9. Don't get worked up over that. You people out there that get all shaken up about high returns. If we put that in there for 20 years, in the pre-tax spot we have $280,000. In the other Roth we would have $218,000. So you're like, well, that doesn't really equate to being a great decision, right? You have less money in the one account versus the other. So the difference is clear, in the end, because not converting the money leaves you with more money, but it's also not what you make, it's what you keep. The $280,000 is all taxable when it's withdrawn. The $218,000 is tax-free. One thing no one knows today is what tax rates will be in 20 years from now, but they're likely not going away. I'm sure we're going to be taxed on some source of income. That's probably not changing at any point in the near future because that'd probably lead to bigger problems. So in Bobby's case, the case above, a lot of this decision may be based on if he will be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, which he may have a better idea if he knows what his income will be leading up to and then what the type of lifestyle that he wants to lead is. We don't know what tax rates will be, but Bobby might have some better idea if he plans on working in retirement, which this can really affect the decision that's made today. That just gives you kind of a scenario of what that would look like in that chart above, showing you the pre-tax versus after-tax aspect of that. So when is the right time to convert pre-tax retirement money to a Roth IRA? So the best time to do a Roth IRA conversion is when there's a market crash. Great example was 2020 with the COVID-19 induced stock market plunge in March, where from February 19th through March 23rd, the stock market dropped close to 35%. This created a great opportunity for Roth IRA conversions if someone was quick to pull the trigger. In a pre-tax account, there would have been less money to be taxed ultimately because the market was down 35%. And if that was then converted into a Roth IRA and the stock market then rebounded, that would have given that person tax-free growth as the stock market came back over the following months, creating a win-win scenario. And that's in that example. Generally speaking, the younger you are, the more time you have to allow the money to grow, which also makes younger people bigger benefactors for Roth IRA conversions. Short answer to that. Another question is, should I convert it all at once or should I do it over multiple years? So there's really no straightforward way to answer this question because there's a few variables that you need to consider. So one would be, what is the current tax rate and, would the conversion push you into a higher tax bracket for your individual, tax situation? Another variable is, how big is the pre-tax account you're looking at converting? If you're a 70-year-old and, it's a 7-figure traditional IRA, millions of dollars, you're not going to want to convert all of that at one time and pay all those taxes because, that's going to be a real big tax burden. Probably be better to, incrementally convert that into from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. If you're a 25-year-old and you have five grand that's in an old, pre-tax retirement plan, doing the whole thing at once probably isn't going to change your tax situation, very drastically, if at all. And that money then would be then tax-free, growing forward. So those are kind of a couple of the things. One idea would be for those people that are 70-year-olds. This gets into the last question that I had in here. Is it beneficial for my kids if I do a Roth IRA conversion? So this would be geared more towards, that person that is a 70-year-old that, has, some money saved up within a traditional IRA or 401k. They don't need to be 70. They could be, any age really, but somebody, if you're, around 60 plus years old and your life savings is primarily in pre-tax accounts, converting some or all of the money may be beneficial based on your kids' income. So this is something that really isn't taken into account many times because if a parent has saved up a ton of money throughout their career and they know that at some point they're going to be, giving a lot of this money to their kids or grandkids, a lot of it may end up depending on from the best planning may be done early on where it may be converting some of that money. If you have kids that make a lot of money and eventually this money will be their inheritance, it may make sense to start converting some or all of that pre-tax money so the man doesn't take more of your money than they really have to. So in 2019, there was some significant changes to non-spousal beneficiary IRAs. So these are the accounts that the IRA money would go into after an IRA owner passes and leaves the money to anyone other than their spouse. So literally think of it, anybody other than your husband or wife. This money goes to them based on this Secure Act that took place at the end of 2019. It took away options for non-spousal beneficiaries to take withdrawals over the course of their entire lifetime, referred to as RMDs. Now, if the IRA owner passes away and leaves the money to a non-spouse, that person has to withdraw the money within the next 10 years. So they don't need to do it, 10% of it each year. They could do all of it in 1 year, but the bigger the account, the more of a tax burden it's going to end up being for that person. So that could be a case, that could cause a really serious amount of taxes owed on the withdrawal and dramatically increase those beneficiaries' taxable income, especially if they or their spouse is a higher income earner. So this may not even be your child. This may be your in-laws, your son or daughter-in-law that is making a lot of money, but combined as a household, they file their taxes jointly, and therefore, if they were to receive all of this money, would jack up their tax bracket. So, keep that in mind for those of you out there. If you're, have parents or know people that are older that have a lot of money in these pre-tax IRAs, it may be worth, talking to, for you younger kids out there, maybe worth talking to your parents about, getting that inheritance in the right place first. So I hope you guys learned something and took something away from this. If you have questions, feel free to DM me or leave a comment in here. If you have any ideas that you would want me to talk about, I'd be more than happy. DM me, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to either talk to you specifically about it or make a video or blog geared towards that topic that you'd like more information about. Appreciate you taking the time to check me out today.